What's up guys, welcome back to my layout and world of modeling. I'm Dan here as always, and today we're going to be looking at all the projects that I've gotten done in the last 2 months here. These months have flown by, but it's given me a little bit of time to complete some more stuff. I'm working on a ton of different projects right now, and honestly other projects that are not related to trains, and then some other projects that are related to trains but not model trains. So I'm going to show you guys some things that I've been up to, a little bit of a different thing I can show you guys that's train related I think you might enjoy for this video. I'll show it in a little bit here. But like I said, I've been very busy, so I apologize for the slow paced videos here, but right now I just need time to be able to actually finish projects. Big thing I'm doing right now is I'm filming a lot of different cars, and my idea here is I really want to try to work on building up a library of content, because I want to be able to leave a couple videos, have them edited and ready to go, so if I get into lulls like this where I don't have any video content, I can get something out and upload it. I have something ready to go. That'll keep you guys entertained, give you something to chew on, and be able to kind of enjoy and learn some more techniques. With the tank car builds, that's really what I'm trying to pursue, and I do have some other build ideas that I want to try to work on, maybe some hoppers and some other stuff. And hopefully some locomotives as we get into these cooler fall months. I'm going to try to circle back on my workbench and figure out what I can try to start filming. But at this point, I really want to try to film as much as possible. But right now, it's just really hard with my schedule. So I'm just trying to find hours where I can actually make stuff work. And like I said, I'm doing a bunch of other stuff right now. And I'm doing a little bit of traveling here and there. So, you know, like I said, I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything. But I have been able to get some projects done. And I actually have a good number of cars today. A lot of them are going to be tank cars, because tank cars are one of the big things that I've been working on. Right now I've been going through and selling off a lot of my tank cars, and I've been replacing them with better, more quality built models, as you'll see. And so that's the reason I have so many tank cars right now. It's a lot of really cool cars, including the chlorine cars. I'm going to bring those out here and show you guys the completed cars from that series if you watch the whole thing in detail. By the way, a lot of great feedback on that video. I really appreciate that, guys. I really am glad that you are liking those kinds of builds. And I promise you I have more of those in the works. Matter of fact, after this video, I got one more build coming up, and it's going to be on a LPG tank car. A very popular prototype a lot of you guys have actually asked me about, so we'll talk about that later on when I get the video uploaded. So anyways, we'll go ahead and look at the layout here. And I haven't been spending an incredible amount of time here, but I have been trying to kind of perfect some things and just keep fine-tuning stuff out here with the layout, because I don't really have a time and a budget, of course, to be able to afford what I need to do next. And right now the process is working on trees and doing some paving and things like that, and finishing certain sections over here on the east end of the layout, as I'll show. That's been kind of a headache for me, because I've been doing a lot of planning and replanning, and then I decide, wait a minute, I have a better idea. And so at this point, I think I have an idea of what I want to do in this section, and we'll go ahead and cut the camera off here, and we'll talk about what I want to do over here on the layout to get you guys caught up on layout updates. Well, not like I said, not too much has changed out here. I have been very busy getting some stuff cleaned up, cleaning track, and I've also been having to do a little bit of maintenance and touch-up work. As you can see, I have some spots of ballast and things like that where I've had to repair some things. This is an interesting story and kind of embarrassing. I was working on something else out here, and I actually dropped my drill on this switch and wiped the switch out, damaged the point, so I had to take the switch out and replace it. So that was a little annoying. Not something you want to have happen on a completed scene, so unfortunately all this got a little torn up. So I relayed a new switch in here and glued it down, and I just got to reballast all that and blend the scenery back in, but it'll be fine. It's just ballast. If it was static grass and bushes and things like that, it would have been a lot worse, because I don't really want to have to redo all that if I can help it. But it's one of those things, one of those weird things that can happen, I guess. But as we move eastward, technically northward on the layout here, you can see there's a number of cars on the layout, and I've been trying to run some trains out here, and I've honestly been having a lot of fun just getting some cars up to date and sorted out. And of course, once I get things a little bit more fine-tuned, I'll start making some more train operation videos. But right now I just need time, because a lot of these cars are getting track time in for really the first time since they've been completed, and I'm finding cars that need a little bit more fine-tuning. Matter of fact, I've brought in dozens of cars back into the house to fix and repair, and then they've come back out here. So this is why I kind of have these random little strings of cars all over the place. These are cars that have had to go back in after being tested, get repaired, and then they've been brought back out here, and they're basically layout ready. They're qualified essentially for the layout now. They all roll freely. Couplers have been changed if need be, stuff like that. These cars are all good to go. These ones are brand new, but we're going to show you guys these because these are some of the cars I just finished. This coil car just got inspected and finished, and then I have a number of cars over here on this side that have gotten some mileage tests, things like that, durability tests, even some of my custom built tank cars here, including the GATX Sulfur car. These have all gotten a lot of track time in, at least a couple hours now. Just getting tested and really worked in, and everything's performing flawlessly now. Same thing with all these trash cars. All my trash cars are on the layout, and they're all really well dialed in, fine-tuned. Coupler height still needs adjusted on some of the cars. I know which ones are which, but like I said, I'll kind of, as I go about and take stuff off the layout and replace stuff with different cars for different sessions, I'll bring stuff in and work on them and get them layout ready, or layout capable, I guess you could say. So other than that, not too many issues with expansion or anything like that. Having the AC unit and the heater all together in this unit here has been a real blessing. It's kept everything in temp and climate controlled really well out here, and of course having the dehumidifier. Now in terms of stuff that I'm still working on, as you can see, I'm working in the yard still, and I'm getting lights installed, and my plan with the lighting is to have all this wired up. As you can see, I have the modular lighting system. So I have all the wiring and everything for it. I just need to get the Woodland Scenics wiring system, get all that set up. That way I can have a lit yard scene here, and then I also want to install 1 or 2 lights inside the yard office. That way I can have a lit building. I think it'll really, really look nice if we have some nighttime switching operations. That's going to be a lot of fun, because most of the time with the local operations nowadays, they run most of everything at dark, just to avoid traffic and blocking crossings and things like that, since it's such a busy area. But as you can see, there's just some other little detail things I still need to complete, and it's just, as time and money allows, I'll go in and buy more products and details, come out here, lay little things in at a time, and then of course getting cars and stuff to put in the parking lot, final detailing, you know, bringing the ballast up to the structure, all that good stuff. Obviously the structure's in place. We talked about that in the last update on the layout, and then just track cleaning, of course, and everything else. All this is set up and ready to go, and all this still needs finished. I need to plant trees in this area, static grass in this back corner, and basically extend all these shrubs and bushes out all the way around, basically. Now, this is the trouble scene. This is the area where I've had a lot of issues, but finally, the time I did have, I was able to come out here kind of tail end of summer, and I was able to get all the track properly gauged and readjusted to be level. Because as you recall, this table had a very severe sag that developed over time, and I had to readjust the track height. And so what I did is I installed a bunch of styrene spacers, new cross ties, things like that, replaced some track with track that I already had on hand, readjusted everything, fine-tuned, dialed everything in, and now this is all finished and ready to be painted and ballast to be laid. And basically once I've done that, that'll be the last bit of track ballasting I have to do, other than touch up and stuff like that. But so we're in pretty good shape actually out here. Now the scene itself, what I want to do is model a scene where I have trees on either side, a little forested area maybe, a little track alley, a signal bridge, trees on both sides, and a little alley just kind of running through here that I can kind of cleverly disguise in. It's not prototypical to Fostoria, but what I was going at originally was to model this whole area of East Fostoria, where it's basically out in a cornfield. But quite frankly, I just have come to the conclusion that I do not want to model a cornfield. It's just bland, boring, flatlands, and it's just a waste of a scene, essentially. So I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to make it enjoyable and fun, and lay in a crossing. I'm going to lay in a grade crossing right here that crosses over the tracks, have a gated crossing here, and then trees, scenery, and everything like that. And I want to have a backdrop that runs all the way across here, basically. That's kind of the plan I have. And then I'll just be able to kind of cleverly blend the trees in through the scene to kind of disguise this little turnout and things like that. And I think it'll work out really well. If something else changes, then I can always come back to the drawing board a little bit, but right now I think that's the plan I'm sticking to. So right now I got all my tools out. We just need to get all this put away and then switch gears and start preparing for ballast. I already have brand new ballast, glue ready to go, things like that, and all my track laying material needs to get put away. And then once I have all that done, I have some more time. then I can start doing the fun, tedious task of ballasting. So as I said, I have some really nice rolling stock that I've been working on that I wanted to show you guys first. And I'm going to start with hoppers in this video. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in a little string of cars that I've completed recently. The first car I'm bringing into shot here is this really, really nice C&W billboard style 4750. This car here is another salt hopper. And my buddy Nathan was able to get me 2 of these, and I did this one for myself. It's AEX 14666. I had the custom decals made by Circuit City Decals. What I did to this car was I made my own custom fiberglass hatch for it, and then I did all of the weathering on the sides with various washes, and then I did a lot of heavy powder washes to create the very heavy rust effects that you see on the sides. I did a lot of hand scribbled and hand drawn graffiti. That's all done with the ink pens, the Jelly Roll ink pens. There's a lot of graffiti on the underbays, and then there's a little bit of salt streaking coming down from the top of the car there. A lot of that rust again is the powder work, and then if we look at the C&W logo, you can see it's very, very peeled and it's starting to chip away. That placard is really rusted up, as you can see. But that's what makes it really realistic, is you get all these really cool effects all tied together in this one car. So it was a lot of work to do this, but it was one that's been on the bucket list to do for a long time as one of these C&W placard cars. And I also will let you guys know I do have a second one of these, a different number that I'm going to be selling. So if you guys follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I'll post pictures of that, and pretty soon that's going to be going up for sale either on eBay or I'm going to sell it on Facebook. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, this car came out really good and really quickly. What I'm going to do is uncouple this car, and we'll flip this around so you guys can see the opposite side. The opposite side has a lot more salt streaking, and I like the look. I like that variation in texture, because that's what a lot of these salt cars look like. They get a lot of this really crazy streaking as the salt gets spilled down the sides and starts to wash away. Same thing with quick lime cars. It's really the same thing, only the quick lime usually is a lot heavier. There's a lot of work building these hatches too, by the way, because a lot of this had to be done using styrene, and I made my own little hinges, little latches and gates and everything else for the top of that car, since I don't have any spare hatches on hand. As you can see on the top, there's a lot of that really heavy rust. We got the replacement walkways there on the top. That's a really neat touch. Overall, I'm really satisfied with how the weathering came out on this car. It's one of my favorite C&Ws I have at the moment. This next rusty beauty here is another MWCX 462043. I've shown a couple of these in my videos now, and this was the last one I made, and the last one, of course, was my own personal car. And I really went into detail with this one. A lot of extra oil rendering on the placard there. A lot of fine tuning to the rust, trying to do the heavy patchwork on the sides with that patchy rust. That was actually done with powder work and a little bit of airbrush mixed together to create those dark, grungy, moldy spots. There's a little bit of fresh rust coming down from the top. Again, with this car, custom built hatches. Those are scratch built from styrene. All the little details are scratch built with styrene, and there's a lot of rust, grime, and replacement walkway on the top there. On the sides there's prototypical graffiti, prototypical patching. There's a lot of fine little rust dots, pits, scrapes, and all kinds of little scratches on the sides. Same thing with the underbays there. The underbody is very, very rusty. The trucks are nicely grimed up, of course. And then on this side, the prototypical side again, this has the graffiti. If I can get this thing on the track here. You can see the hand-painted graffiti again. And the placard on this side has been completely painted over, and it started to rust over now. And I thought that was a really unique touch on this car, so I went ahead and recreated that, as you can see, based on the prototype photos. Again, there's a lot of that dark, grungy grime based around the center sole of the car there. It's interesting how some of these cars have that wavy effect. A lot of streaking coming down the panels there on this side. Slightly beat up the Milwaukee Road lettering, but other than that, the Milwaukee Road lettering itself on this car is actually in fairly good shape. It's just faded down and aged with the paint itself. This car does have a light fade to it, obviously, to tone down that bright yellow. And then everything else is just oil and powder effects, acrylic work, airbrush blending here and there, powders, and then of course the safety striping's been added and all that good stuff. This next car is a fantastic ICG I've done, and this is really my first proper attempt at an ICG 4750. This is a nice tangent model, so it's very highly detailed, as you can see. And with the ICGs, they either go completely rusted over, or you'll get partial rust jobs like this, and then you'll still have areas where the paint's still in relatively good shape, but most of the time that lettering peels off. And so how I did this was I first weathered the majority of the car with some airbrush, oil work, and everything else to kind of blend in the side. I did the wavy panel effect here and then highlighted certain areas with an airbrush to create those little dents and dings on the sides. As you can see, that little wavy panel trick that I did there. Hand painted the hatches there. Those are stuck on the model nicely. Nice enough anyways. Added the safety striping, a little bit of tag work, heavy kick up and grime on the ends, on the underbody of course. The underbody is completely blacked out with grime and mud and dirt and everything else. Once I did the majority of the weathering work, I then took a X-Acto and very carefully scraped away the lettering away from the ICG lettering. A little bit on the numbers, but for the most part it's just the ICG lettering. And there's various stages of this. Sometimes you have the numbers completely scraped away and the data. In this case, this example was done based on a car that only had the lettering peeling on the ICG and a little bit on the number. But that's the biggest part there, is doing that ICG ghost lettering. So once I did that, then I was able to grind back over it with some fresh rust and everything like that, and it just came out perfect. A little bit of side scraping on the sides, a little bit of rust pitting, gouging and scraping, of course, typical of a 4750. They get a lot of wear and tear. There's a lot of that mud and kick up on the ends. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. That mud is real nice too. I love the mud effects on this thing. If we switch sides here, very carefully, got to be careful with these tangents because you can snag your fingers on those detail parts real easily and break something real quick, like if you're not careful. But on this side you can see there's a little bit of fine scribble work on the sides. The rust is just slightly varied on this side as well. I think it's a really cool touch. A lot more rust coming down here over that, and it's just starting to eat away at that ghost lettered ICG lettering. It's so cool. And it just looks perfectly in place on the layout too, I think. This side has the replaced walkway panels again, and then some rust, some more graffiti on this end as well. Now we move into the tank cars, and obviously the first car I'm showing you here is one of my scratch-built chlorine cars. We just finished the build series on these, and I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the last two that I finished. Both of these are the compressed letter TILX and the OLNX versions here. This one was hand painted, or excuse me, it was custom painted and decaled obviously after I did the main build portion itself. And by the way, if you guys want to know all the nitty-gritty details of how I built these cars, for anyone that didn't see the build series, go back and watch that. It goes in a lot of detail on how I actually build these cars, but basically what I did was I used an Atlas 17K tank car, took the ends off and everything on the underframe and replaced everything else with Athearn parts and scratch-built components. So scratch-built walkways on the top, scratch-built handrails, new hatches, new end detail parts, all kinds of different stuff, new brake plumbing, everything like that was scratch-built on these cars. They're models that have needed done for a long time, and I built 3 of them for that reason. So this is the TILX variation. One thing I like about this one is it's got some rust scraping and pitting on the top. I tried to make it look like this had some kind of side scrape damage at some point in time in its life. A lot of kick up at spray and grime on the underbody. Of course, lots of nice weathering to complement everything, all the hand painted work there. Honestly, I think it just looks really nice. I think these cars just glow. And I can't wait to get them in operation here. They're finally out here on the layout, ready for proper testing and a good break-in run. The second car here is the OLNX version, obviously, and this one is done the exact same way as that TILX car I showed you. All the lettering and decaling and everything like that is a combination of custom-made and smokebox graphics decals. And yes, at some point in time I will change the data on the ends there and on the sides because it is the incorrect load weights. So I'm just going to have to get other decals made for those, and at some point in time I'll go back and re-decal those. It's one of those things I missed during the build, but I was just really anxious to get these done. In terms of weathering, with this one, pretty much weathered the same way as the other two. This one's a little bit cleaner. I think this is actually the cleanest. One little thing I did with it is I added a little bit of graffiti just for some flavor, a little bit of variation, if you will. Bright rusty couplers, making it look like maybe the knuckles were replaced or something like that on this one, like this one was recently shopped. The decals that I did have made, again, for anyone interested, are the Onyx lettering and the numbers, and then the chlorine inhalation hazard decals. These are all custom made by Matt from Circus City Decals. I want to give him a shout out there. If you guys need decal work done, he does fantastic work. I've gotten a number of sheets done, and he was really helpful in getting this project completed with his custom data. And now obviously this last one here, this was the star of the video build series. This is the one we mainly focused on, and again, built the same exact way. All of them were built the same way. The only one that had a slight difference was the TILX car that I did that had some very subtle variations in the way I built it. But for the most part, the all Onyx cars are both the same. Same railings, same hatches, same fittings, everything like that. Genesis trucks, of course, because I got to have the spinning bearings on these things, new couplers, a lot of nice detail parts, scratch built and commercially available parts, and different parts from the Athearn 16,000 gallon tank cars, which I use to kind of cross-pollinate and kit bash details. Swapping parts from the Atlas tank body. The whole thing was rewrapped in styrene, and basically a complete repanel, new ends, everything like that. A real hell of a build, but one that really needed done, and I'm really happy with it, as you can see. I now have 3 completed chlorine cars, and at some point in time I may come back to these and do one more, because there is another road name that I forgot about. I think it's like SKPX or something like that. They have a couple of these that I wanted to do. So at some point in time I might come back and maybe build one more of these, but for now I'm quite happy with 3. I have 2 Sulfur guys to show you. I have 2 Sulfur cars to show you guys also in this video. These ones here, they are Walther's 14K cars that I got on eBay. This one has a lot of really heavy rust pitting on the top, as you can see. It's got some hand-painted graffiti, hand-drawn graffiti, some stencil variations and stuff that I changed on this one. Custom number, a lot of heavy weathering and grime on the underbody, lots of bits of splatter and things like that. Really just trying to make the tank body a lot more detailed. With the final Sulfur cars I do, I'm really trying to go into a lot more detail to make them look a little bit more realistic. These cars are not for the unit train. These are for the mainline freight, where they run blocks of these cars in manifest trains. That's what these cars are for. So they are done a little bit more detailed than the mainline freight, or rather the unit train cars, where those are a little bit more lightly weathered, and there's a little bit of corner cutting to try to make them a little bit more easy to make and finish. Since I had to do about 80 or 90 of those cars, I think I'm actually up about to 100 at this point for my unit train, so I'm definitely about done collecting these cars. But like I said, with this one, just a lot of grime and rust, things like that. And then with the other car, which is an ITDX, this one has a slight fade. Custom numbers, as you can see, and then I did some patch repairs and things like that on the sides. Lots of rust and grime coming down from that manway, that area at the top there, and some rust pits, dots, and things like that on the sides. A lot of rust on the sides, and then this one has the white streaking coming up along the base of the car there. I thought that was a really cool touch. So I just did that with all the oil effects, blended all that together, and then highlighted everything with the kick-up underbody, spray there, splatter, everything like that. Alright, this car here is a Walther's mainline car that I did a little bit of customizing to, and it's kind of a unique one. I was really happy that they did the TEIX version in the yellow lettering. It's a really unique paint scheme. I've seen a number of these before in Fostoria, and I really wanted to have one of these. So with this car, what I did was I added the hand-drawn and painted graffiti, new safety striping, and some other little improvements. Lots of fading done to the tank body, and then you can see all the greasy splatter and streaking, rain streaking that's coming down from the top of the car. There's a lot of oily residue and grease coming down from that top hatch there. On the underbody of the car, there's a lot of that white streaking, again coming up from the base of the car there, streaking down the tank body, as you can see. Lots of rust and grime on the trucks, kick up and everything like that. On the top hatch itself, or rather around the top hatch, I added my own railings. The railings stock on this car are plastic, so I replaced those with metal pieces. So I scratch built all those and installed them on the car, and honestly that was a much better improvement for this model. It made it look a lot more prototypical, a lot more realistic, I think. So I did all that, and then on the opposite side, pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of graffiti on this car, as you can see, and it's probably the most heavily tagged tank car I've ever done thus far, and I definitely need more of these. But you can see all the extensive amounts of graffiti. It's all hand drawn and copied from photos, and of course the safety striping, lots of grime and rust on the trucks, and a lot of that greasy splatter coming down from the top hatch from the load. The next car here is a TILX 25,000 gallon car, and this one's another really cool car. It's based off prototype photos of similar cars in service, and what I've done was I took the base model, I heavily faded the entire tank down, and in certain areas I masked the whole car body off, gloss coated things, and then faded it. I should specify that here. And that's how I was able to recreate these really cool patch effects on the sides, where they did some side swipe repairs, maybe some graffiti cover-ups. They redid the inspection table there and the reporting mark on the top of the car, and just some other little minor repairs here and there. You see a lot of these cars like this, and matter of fact the next tank car I'm going to show you has a similar effect. But I really want more of these cars on the layout, because these cool patch jobs are really important to have a prototypical fleet of tank cars, because a lot of tank cars have some pretty cool patching and different effects like that. So I really wanted at least one of these. So again, I did the patching, added the new safety striping, rust, grime, all the kick up and spray on the underbody again, all done with oils, chalks, powders, a little bit of kick up there of course, and then again you got that greasy lathing spillage coming down from the hatches, lots of rust, all done with sponge effects. That's all oils on the top there. On the ends of course you got some patching and the kick up, and then on this side you can see the difference in the patch repairs. Again, those subtle differences. I really like having that variation, but this side is honestly my favorite. I really like that patching, and as you can see, it's just starting to streak down back over that patch. You can see that light streaking just over that fresh patching. That's really cool, honestly. So I definitely need to get maybe one or two more of these UTLX cars, and I'll be done on UTLX cars for the most part. But this one is just absolutely phenomenal. I love this car. Alright, this next car here is a UTLX LPG car, and I picked this up at, I believe, Des Plaines Hobbies in when I was actually out in Chicago a while back, actually this summer. I found this car and I was looking for an anhydrous ammonia car, and this was perfect for what I was looking for. So with this one, what I did, let me see here. There's a lot to talk about on this car, so I'll try to kind of breeze through here. I had to fade the entire car body down first with white. I added new UTLX decals. Those are again custom made by Circus City Decals. I did all of my own trim film black patch repairs on this car using the microscale trim film. Added some new stencils and things like that, and then lots of rust pitting, scraping, gouging on the top, and then there's a lot of rust streaking down from the walkway supports. Since this is an older UTLX build car, I really wanted to have a lot of rust features and things like that. You can see all the crazy spray painting, rust patching, stencil replacement, and things like that. Very common on these LPG cars as they get reserviced all the time. But with this one, again, it has all of the fine rust effects up top, and then it has all the fine white streaking on the base of the car. Really cool feature there, and of course all the mud splatter, kick up and grime on the trucks. And then if we move it to the opposite side, this side here has some heavier patchwork. So again, I like to have that variation between both sides. This one has a very large patch repair on the side there. A lot of the stenciling has been repatched on this side in certain areas. And then again, you get a lot of that fine rust very carefully streaked down the side. That's done with oils first, and then I follow behind with a powder wash of bright reddish rust to do that effect. And it just works so well for cars like this. Nice rusty walkway there, and of course a lot of rust pitting and grime around that hatch there as well. So it's a very, very well-worn UTLX prototype. Alright guys, now we get to talk about two locomotives that I just recently finished, and these are both engines that I've had. They're both going to be UP SD70Ms, and in the process of getting some proper power prepared for the layout, I've went back into my personal collection and I've refurbished a couple of my UP engines. Right now I'm working on GEVOs, but these were the first that I got done was the SD70Ms because I really wanted to run the SD70Ms on the layout. So with these are all the Athearn Genesis ones from the very first runs. I have the flag scheme, and then the other one's the Union Pacific script, as you'll see in a second. 4921 here. A long time ago when I got this, I added the PTC antennas and did a lot of detailing to it originally. All I did with this locomotive was updated the weathering, cleaned everything, tuned everything back up, added a decoder to it, got it programmed, and it's ready to run on the layout now. Everything in terms of weathering, I refurbished the sides of the cab a little bit. I modeled a lot of side scrapes and pitting, a lot of oil streaking and oily exhaust streaks from the top. Lots of fading effects. That was all done with a little bit of airbrush and hand brush work here. Fine tip brush work, as I should say, all over the sides. Just really touched up and detailed the weathering. Finished fading the flag a little bit there. There's a lot of scraping on the sides of the cab there, and then lots of fresh grime on the trucks and the wheels. On this side here, there's a lot of that grime coming up, really just spraying up onto the cab is what I'm trying to say here. If I can get this thing back on the track. A lot of that was done with the powders again, and it's going to be kind of hard to see here, but an effect I did on the sides, let me see if I can get it in shot here, was I added the little splatters of oily exhaust soot and then streaked it down all over the sides of the cab there. I thought that was a really unique touch. It was something I wanted to recreate because I've seen that before on a lot of these units. And so with the bright yellow, obviously, this was a good test bed to try that technique out. So it's just a matter of taking a little bit of black powder and just very carefully dotting it here and there and then streaking it down and blending it out to where it's almost invisible on the sides of the locomotive. But it's very subtle. It's just a subtle effect there. Then, of course, there's a little bit of oil streaking and grime and grease and stuff coming down from the grills. It's going to be a very common area where you're going to see a lot of that grime coming out of. But yeah, overall this first SD70M came out absolutely fantastic. It runs really well on the layout, so pretty soon I'm going to start getting these running on some manifest freights out here, and I can get some videos of them in operation. Alright guys, get ready. I've saved the best of these SD70Ms for last. Here it is, my pride of the layout in terms of locomotives. And of course I'm not going to be able to get it on the track first attempt here, so that kind of ruins some of the suspense, but that's alright. We'll just get it on the track here. This is unit 4714, and this one is a pretty wild weathering job. So I really wanted to do a heavily faded Union Pacific SD70M, you know, because a lot of these original units are pretty ratty now. They've been sitting in storage lines and running all over. So what I've done here again with this one is I redid all of the weathering on this initial engine. All of the detailing and everything like that was initially done during the first stage of weathering when I originally weathered this locomotive. So things like adding MU jumpers and adding the PTC and stuff, that was all done originally when I got this locomotive. The only things I've done here was redo the weathering. A lot of heavy grime done on the sides of the frame, on the trucks. There's a lot of grime and splatter and streaking on the trucks, and if we zoom in here on the car body hood, you can see how I faded the lettering down with oil washes. That was a really cool effect that I did there. The Union Pacific striping is peeling away, and then there's the extreme heat and sun peel damage. Oily streaking coming down the side of the engine there. A lot of scraping on the fuel tank, as you can see. On the cab here, again, you'll notice all that grime streaking up the sides, and then it's got all kinds of little side scrapes and things like that going on there. Very heavily faded number, and lots of fading on the cab roof there. It is absolutely incredible. This thing could not have come out any better. It was just phenomenal. So much fun to do this. It took a little bit of time to get it exactly how I wanted it to. but it turned out great. I just really regret the fact that I didn't film some of the processes of the roof weathering. Darkened the grills back up a little bit, and then of course just touched up some weathering on the front. But if we look at the top of the engine, and again I'm going to have to just pop this off very briefly, bear with me here, you guys can get an idea of the amount of grime and fading that I did to the top of the hood. Check that out. Just came out phenomenal. So I'm really satisfied with the weathering on this thing. It just really captures the look of one of these old SD70Ms, you know, because these things were built in the 2000s. It's crazy to think these things are already that old. But like I said, I just wanted at least one of these that I could have that was a nice heavily weathered engine. If we come to this side now, in conclusion, you guys can again see the way I touched up all the weathering. I got again all the streaking coming down from various parts of the hood. Very heavily sun bleached numbers and letters on the side of the hood there, on the cab. And then again, a lot of side scraping to the sides of the battery box door, a lot of greasy soot and grime all over the sills. Just looks perfect. I really am happy with this locomotive, and honestly I can't wait to get it in service. So the next locomotives that are going to be coming out here that are going to be in various condition like this are going to be my Gevos. I have 3 right now that I got to get tuned up, so when those are done, hopefully they'll be able to come out in the layout and we'll be able to showcase those. But for now, those are the 2 SD70Ms, and I'm really happy with how those came out. So last thing in this video, I told you guys I've been getting into a new kind of hobby, and for some of you who follow me, I have posted some pictures of my my little setup here. A while back, I actually got into collecting real train horns, and so kind of going into the territory, I decided I wanted to get a little rig set up for my actual train horns. So I kind of went into a process of looking for a truck that I could fit a compressor in the back of, and an air tank, and actually fit a horn into the bed. I wanted to get something like a Ranger, because for one thing it's a bit more compact. It's early 2000s, mid 2000s, a better era for trucks in my opinion, because everything's still pretty easy to work on. You don't have a lot of the electronics like you do now, where electronics just make things really hard to work on and you have to take it to a shop. For the most part, everything on this truck I've been able to work on myself, and I bought this up in Michigan and brought it back around the time I actually got my first train horn, which was at a train show in I think 2021. A guy was selling N&W S5T, for any of you horn enthusiasts who are watching this channel. It's a 5-chime horn, very common on Norfolk and Western. Pretty hard horns to find. He was selling it really cheap, and I ended up getting it, and that's kind of where the bug bit. But I basically went through this whole process of getting a truck for this project, and doing some work to the truck itself, customizing it, changing some stuff, and things like that. And that led to what I have now. The final pieces of the puzzle were getting a proper air setup. So I recently got this large 30-gallon compressor, and of course built my own components, made tabletops, my own stand, nice durable stand for the horn itself, instead of having a rack on the top. A lot of guys, what they do is they set up an actual horn rack on the back of their trucks behind the cab, and that's how they'll actually put a horn up top, and it does definitely sound better. I will say, having this blocked by the compressor and not having that full volume with everything, it does affect the sound quality, but this thing still projects. These horns are very loud. Currently got an old Big Tag K5 on this, and you can see I got the hoses and everything hooked up to it, so I won't dabble way too much here into all this. But if you guys want a dedicated video talking about everything with the horns and my setup and everything else, I'll make a separate video talking all about all this stuff that we can look at. So like I said, that'll kind of come in the pipeline, hopefully. I got a bee chasing me at the moment. Sorry about that, guys. These things are all over the place. It's not fun, not cool. Anyways, yeah, so I'll make a separate video about all this. I apologize, the lighting is screwing me up here. It's really humid. But yeah, I got a couple of horns I'll show you guys in the garage too. There's the compressor, obviously, and all that. And then I have a spare tank in the back there as well. That's a 20-gallon tank, so I got a lot of air here. So like I said, I'll make some videos of this thing and talk about this setup a little bit more if that's something that interests you guys. But yeah, that's been another time-consuming hobby that I've recently got into. It gets me outdoors, out in the garage, doing some work, so it's honestly been a fun summer project. So that's been eating up a little bit of my time and obviously some resources too, obviously, but it's been fun. And now that I got that all done, I'm kind of switching gears, getting ready to go back inside and do some more work. So that's where I'm at with all this, but overall it's been a fun project. So let's go ahead and go back into the garage. I'll show you guys a couple more horns, I guess, at this point. So I do have a little collection of horns at this point. I have been gathering them up a little bit. As you can see, I have a couple different horns that I'm collecting right now. Got an old P3. This is an RS5T. The S5T, that's the very first horn I bought. I found that at a train show for $600. I bought it, paid cash for it right away. That's the horn that got the bug bite, basically, or rather that's where the bug bit, was when I got this one. This is a former N&W horn off of an RS5, I believe. Or what is it, an RS3? Is it an RS3? I forget. N&W had a number of those little switchers that they had in Roanoke, so that's what this one's off of. This is off of a CSX SD40, and then that's off of a GT GP38-2. This one over here is a former Union Pacific S5T. This has some upgraded parts on it, so I have that one. I have a Norfolk Southern 90s K5. I have a CSX 2000s K5. This one is off of a Dash 9 and then later an AC40. It's actually an AC44 rebuild, apparently. And then that one's off of a Dash 8, a C40 Dash 8. So I'm really happy to have those. Alright guys, I really appreciate you all sticking around for this video. Like I said, I got a lot more exciting rolling stock in the pipeline right now and a lot more projects coming soon. Stay tuned for some more Locomotive things. I got a couple of secret videos coming up there. And then the next video coming up will be an LPG tank car build. I'm going to have an LPG car coming pretty soon there that I'm going to be showing, so you guys can stay tuned for that. But I really appreciate you guys watching my videos. I really appreciate all the likes and all the positive comments that I've gotten. I'll keep making some content for you guys as I go along here, and if you guys have any suggestions for anything you're looking to see done in HO as well, just send me a message on Facebook or leave a comment. I'll do my best to try to reply, and it might be a case where it's something I can look at, but like I said, leave some comments and some feedback and things like that. Subscribe here on YouTube for more content coming down the road here, and I will see you in the next video, guys. Thank you so much. Take it easy.